Hey everybody, Paul Abernathy here. Welcome back to another episode here at Electrical Code Academy. I'm your instructor for today, and we're going to be talking ampere ratings of receptacles. Pretty important topic because I get quite a few questions about things like, well, can I put a 20 amp branch circuit on a 15 amp receptacle? Can I put a 15 on a 20? 15 amp receptacle on a 20? Can I put a 15 amp branch circuit on a 20 amp receptacle, and all those little nuances? We're going to talk about that today. We're going to get the air clear when it comes to the ampere ratings of receptacles and what you can and what you can't do. And I'm going to give you a little bit of information as we go about the different circuits that are required to be 20 amp versus what could be 15 amp. And maybe you're an electrician that does everything in a house in 20 amps when it comes to the 120 volt receptacle applications. So branch circuit applications. So maybe that's what you do. But again, you're going to see there are options. Also, before I get too deep into it, I want to remind you, if you're struggling with learning the National Electrical Code, that's what I'm here for. This is what I've dedicated my life to. For the last 32 years, I have been working with people to learn the National Electrical Code. And I was able to team up and partner to build a platform that allows me to be able to make it as simple as possible for you to learn the National Electrical Code. Also give you access to me on Wednesday nights so you can ask me questions. That's part of the program. You can get access to me and ask me anything you want. And our courses are set up that it basically gives you 24/7 access for 365 days, a whole year, that type of thing. So if you're interested in learning about our courses, if you want to do exam prep, that's the Fast Tracks Black. If you want to get exam prep, but you also want videos, then that's the Plus. So you get the Black Plus, you get 12 months access to fasttrackstube.com. And it's kind of like YouTube, but it's Fast Tracks Tube, and that's TRAX and TUBE, or maybe fasttrackstv.com if that's what you prefer. And those videos really go into a lot of detail, much like this video. We're going to have a bunch of them coming. It's not just me. We're going to have other educators on there. That platform is not designed to be just me. It's going to have other well-known educators' videos on there. And so you're going to get a well-rounded collection of videos that are all filtered by me personally. I review them and determine whether or not they're adequate for the channel. And so, again, if you haven't subscribed yet, go check it out. But if you get the Fast Tracks Plus, you're going to get a year access anyway. Okay, so that's at fasttrackstube.com. If you need a good prep course, right here, go to fasttracksystem.com. Now, if you're already licensed and you really are struggling with understanding, or you want to reduce the learning curve for residential wiring, commercial wiring, industrial wiring, then we have courses for you. That's the Fast Tracks Red, the Fast Tracks Green, and the Fast Tracks Blue. All available on our website. Those are post-licensing. They help you deep dive into residential, commercial, industrial wiring. But we also have grounding and bonding. One of our most popular courses is the Fast Tracks Purple. And that is all about grounding and bonding. And it is an amazing course. So if you're interested in that, we'd love to have you as a customer. And we value you and we appreciate you. And you can get more information. Even demos are available right there on this website. Just go there, click on courses, look at whatever course you want. And if there's a demo available, watch it, because you'll learn a lot about our programs by doing that. Okay. All right, let's go on and get into the material for today. And let's just jump right in. So we're going to be talking about ampere rating of receptacles. It's, again, a very important topic that sometimes gets glossed over, but on our Fast Tracks program, a lot of the competency reviews have these little questions. And again, statistically, a lot of people get these questions wrong when it comes to ratings of receptacles. So we're going to try to clear the air here and give you a little knowledge about it. And you're going to walk away, hopefully, with a little bit more knowledge of the ratings of receptacles. Okay. All right, so let's look at it here. And of course, as always, we're going to do a little bit of a lesson up front and talk about what circuits in a house, branch circuits in a house, have to be 20 amp, and then which other ones can be 15 amps. Understanding that you could do the whole house if you wanted in 20 amps. Obviously not the larger loads like ranges and whatnot. They'll have their own calculations, their own receptacles, their own ratings. But we're talking about general purpose and things like that. If you want to do everything in 20, you could. But we're going to talk about what's required to be in 20, and then everything else could be 15 amp when we're talking about general receptacle applications. So here we go. So we're going to be talking ampacity or ampere rating of receptacles. And I'm just going to read you some content. Again, great content, and this is available in our Fast Tracks program if you're a student. Receptacle branch circuits must have a rating of 20 amperes for laundry areas, bathrooms, garages, kitchens, obviously except for the refrigerator equipment supplied from an individual branch circuit at 15 amperes or greater. I'll explain that in a second. Dining rooms, pantries, breakfast rooms, and similar areas to all of those I just mentioned. Those all have to be a 20 amp branch circuit. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. All those areas have to be a 20 amp branch circuit. And of course, the laundry and the bathroom are covered in 210.11c, and it covers each one of those. Garages is also there. And then, of course, in kitchens, again, that's covered there too. Now, let's talk a little bit about this here. Except for the refrigeration equipment supplied from an individual branch circuit rated 15 amperes or greater. Okay, so let's talk about that part of it. Now let's go on and get rid of all that. And we'll just highlight this here about that. All right, what are we talking about here? So it's very common for, let's say we have the minimum of 2 small appliance branch circuits. That's defined in 210.11c1. But in there, what if I want to take an individual branch circuit to just the refrigerator, right? I can do that. And it could be a 15 amp. It could still be a 20, but it could be a 15 amp rated branch circuit. Now, a lot of that's going to depend on whatever the nameplate says of the refrigerator. Obviously, if you're doing a Sub-Zero in a multi-million-dollar house, it might be larger. But you could run, there's nothing wrong with a 15 amp branch circuit going there. That wouldn't be a problem, okay? But everywhere else in that what I just talked about would all have to be 20 amp branch circuits. Now, those are required to all be 20, except for the individual branch circuit to the refrigerator, if that you choose to do that in your design. If not, also, typically the refrigerator is supposed to be, it says that in the code, that it should be on the small appliance branch circuit. But there is an allowance for it not to be, right? And that's under the exception, and that's where it could be 15 amps. So people put the refrigerator on the small appliance branch circuit all the time. That's what I used to do. I never ran an individual branch circuit for the refrigerator, and I never had a problem at all. Okay? It's not like you think that they're going to be plugging so many things in this countertop that there's not enough diversity that that's not going to be a problem. But sometimes people he and haw about it, and that's your choice to do that. That's totally up to you. Now, throughout the remainder of a one-family dwelling, then we could use 15 amp rated receptacle branch circuits everywhere else. That would be, for example, bedrooms, basements, living rooms, hallways, all those type of things. No problem being 15 amp branch circuit. And if there's receptacles in there, they most certainly could be 15 amp rated receptacles, and that's not a problem, right? The 20 amp stuff, that has to be where it has to be based on the code. But everywhere else, hey, there's nothing wrong with 15 amp branch circuits. That's perfectly fine. Now, going a little further here, lighting and receptacles can share the same branch circuit except for small appliance receptacles, garage receptacles, bathroom receptacles, unless the circuit supplies a single bathroom, and I'll explain that in a minute, and laundry receptacles. All right, so this is pretty common, right? How many times have you ran a branch circuit to the bedroom, you looped around the bedroom, then you pop up to the switch, and then you put the light in the bedroom on the same circuit as the receptacles? It's perfectly fine. It's acceptable. That's totally acceptable. But you know what? There are applications where you can't. And as you see here, you can't do that when it comes to the small appliance receptacles, the garage receptacles, bathroom receptacles generally, and laundry receptacles. They cannot be on the lighting. They just have that branch circuit serving those receptacles, okay? That's the way that would go. But everywhere else, the bedrooms, living rooms, things like that, perfectly acceptable to have the lighting and the receptacles on the same circuit, okay? Now, let's talk a little bit, I'll get rid of this. Let's talk a little bit about unless the circuit supplies a single bathroom. What are we talking about there? All right, so if I take a 20 amp, we saw that that's required, 20 amp, in the first sentence we looked at. If I run that 20 amp branch circuit to that bathroom, okay, I'm going to have the receptacles in that bathroom on that, and the ones that are within 3 feet of the basin. Again, that's the one serving the countertop. That's where that 20 amp branch circuit's going to be supplying. If that branch circuit that I ran to that individual bathroom stays in that bathroom, in other words, it doesn't branch out to another bathroom, it just goes there and stops there, then I am allowed, under the exception, to also do the lighting, for example, in that bathroom. So I can put everything within reason. Obviously, if we have a heat light combo, then we have to worry about the amps of the heat light. But in general, just keeping it very high level, I could put the lights and the receptacles on the same 20 amp branch circuit, as long as it doesn't leave that bathroom. Now, if you happen to be supplying that bathroom's receptacles, and then you're going to pop out of that bathroom and hit the receptacles in another bathroom, then only the receptacles can be on that 20 amp branch circuit. You couldn't put the lighting on it. So you're just going to bring a different circuit for the lighting, or the lighting in the bathroom is going to be picked up by the bedroom or whatever. Okay, nothing says the lighting has to be exclusive inside of the bathroom. Okay, so that's important, because maybe you have a very simple dwelling and you want to take a 20 amp branch circuit to that bathroom, and you want to pick up the lighting over the vanity, maybe the exhaust fan pulls very little. Maybe that's what you want to hit, and you just run one 20 amp branch circuit and you're done. You're not leaving that room with that branch circuit. Then you're allowed to do that. Put the lighting and the receptacles on it. But the moment you leave, that circuit leaves that room to hit another bathroom, let's say, then you've got a problem. Then only the receptacles can be on that circuit. Make sense? All right, so that's what that rule's talking about. And then, of course, in Unit 7 of our program, for those that are actually in the program, we go even more detail about receptacles and lighting and specific areas and all that, all covered in Unit 7. So, look, if you're liking what you see, you're liking the detail, you like the illustration, the graphic, man, think about our program right there. Just go and watch the demo. It pretty much sells itself. Not only do you get my support, and if you want to know who I am, just go to the front of the National Electrical Code. You'll see my name under Code Making Panel 5, and you'll see my name under Code Making Panel 17. So I am not a fly-by-night YouTuber who just created this stuff out of the air. I've been doing this since all the way back in 89, and when I started doing some recordings. But I really got into it about 2004 when I started creating websites and putting things online and other listening repositories. And that was way before the YouTube grew up and all these other things blew up. So I'm not new to the game. And Google me a bit. You'll see that I love teaching people the National Electrical Code with a passion. It's what I love to do. It's my favorite thing to do, is to be able to live vicariously through all of my students. So if you like what you see and you want to join our program and really get into a good community, check that website out. And Unit 7 will go into a lot more detail. You see, this is a lot of detail. We go into a lot of detail, calculations and everything, okay? All right. So let's kind of go down this list here and kind of look at a few things here. All right, A. What does A mean? Look at these graphics here, okay? A. Receptacles installed on a 15 ampere circuit must have an ampere rating of not more than 15 amperes. Where does it say that? It says that in table 210.21b3. Okay, so we're going to highlight that. And what do I tell folks when you see the chevrons? Do you know what I tell you? What do I tell you? You go to the code book. So we're going to go to the code book, and we're going to go to 210.21b3. So I'm over here, and I'm 210.21, and we're going to, that's 310.21. So let's go back. I'm not even in the right article, so let's get where we're at here. All right, 210.21. All right, 21, and we're going down. Here's B for receptacles, and we're going down to B3 right here, ratings. Okay. Now, notice where this says we're connected to a branch circuit supplying 2 or more receptacles or outlets. I want to point out something, just so people are aware of this. In this illustration right here, you see this duplex receptacle right here? Duplex. That is actually 2 receptacles. One on the top, one on the bottom, configured on a single yoke. Okay, so that is basically 2 receptacles. That's why we call it duplex receptacle. 2 receptacles. So when you look back at the code, it said supplying 2 or more receptacles. One duplex receptacle is 2. Okay, so we want to make sure that you hammer that home. Okay, most certainly hammer that home. That's going to be information that's very beneficial for you. So here's where we're at, and we saw that, and it tells us we're connected to a branch circuit supplying 2 or more receptacles or outlets. Receptacle ratings shall conform to the values listed in table 210.21b3. Okay. All right, so that's what this table is right here. So I'm going to blow this up and see if it comes out okay for us to work with it. Yeah, it does. It works good. So if we were talking about a 15 amp circuit, that would be this right here. Then the receptacle rating right here, not over 15 amps. So a 15 amp branch circuit, the maximum duplex receptacle that we could have on this is 15 amperes. Make sense? So you're doing that bedroom, and you're going to be doing it, and the bedroom obviously is going to be AFCI 210.12a, AFCI requirement. Bedroom is in that list. And they're 15 amp receptacles. Then it would be a 15 amp rated overcurrent protective device and a 15 amp rated duplex receptacle. Makes sense? All right, we'll leave that there on the screen, and we'll go back to the code material so we can kind of look at it. All right, next one, B. Let's look at this one. Uh-oh, we got a big no-no through here. What does this say? A 20 ampere duplex receptacle shall not be installed on a 15 amp branch circuit. Okay. Oh, this is so important. So this right here is still a 15 amp breaker. Whether we want to argue the semantics of it or not, you absolutely cannot put a 20 amp rated device on a 15 amp rated branch circuit. Now, me and you know that the guts inside of that 15 or that 20 amp is exactly the same. The only difference is the faceplate. You got the little notch in the neutral side here of the faceplate to signify that it's a 20 amps. Plus, it'll be marked 20 amps. And this is a NEMA configuration faceplate. But you can't do it. Okay, even though you think, well, Paul, wait a minute, the 15 amps is limiting it. Why can't I put a 20 amp receptacle on there? You can't. And people hate when I say this because the code says you can't, and people are like, I don't accept that. Well, the other thing is it sends a message to folks that you can plug things into this 20 amp receptacle and expect to get 20 amps out of it. And you're not. You're only going to get 15 amps out of it before that overcurrent protected device, trips off. Okay. So the code says we can't do it. So again, don't put a 20 amp receptacle on a 15 amp branch circuit. Put a 15 amp receptacle on a 15 amp branch circuit. Okay. Makes sense? All right, let's go to the next one. So we're at C. All right, this is interesting. So C shows a 20 amp breaker. And this is where people will start to lose it. You ready? So I can't put a 20 on a 15, but here's a 20 amp rated devices. And I can put a 15 amp rated receptacle on a 20. Sounds weird, doesn't it? But that's what the code is. And I can put a 20 on a 20. So this is perfectly acceptable. Now, we'll go down and read C real quick. So here, it says receptacles installed on a 20 amp circuit can have an ampere rating of either 15 or 20. And that's what it says in table 210.21b3. So we'll go look and verify that. Well, here we are, and it looks like right here we see 20 amp circuit, and it says 15 or 20 right there. So if it's a 20 amp branch circuit, I can use a 15. Now, me and you both know that the internal guts are exactly the same, right? But that is just exactly what code tells us that we can do. And you can argue the semantics if you want, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And you have to respect it. All right, well, let's go look at a couple more here because I don't see the other, and it's probably on this page. Yeah, they're all over here. So we'll probably be jumping back and forth. but I'll do my best to kind of illustrate these for you. All right, so let's get to D. Okay, here's where people start to get lost again. So this is a simplex, a single receptacle. All right, so this is a 15 amp rated breaker, and this is a 15 amp rated receptacle, and it's a simplex, and it is a receptacle. It's just one receptacle. Okay, so we call this a single receptacle. But again, in the field, people refer to this as a simplex receptacle, whereas a duplex is 2, a simplex is 1. Okay, as corny as that sounds, that's what it is. So let's go look at D real quick, right here. Here's what D says. It says a single receptacle installed on a branch circuit with no other devices or outlets. Okay, so it's not 2 or more, it's just 1, shall have an ampere or an ampere rating not less than the rating of the circuit. All right, why is that so important? So this single receptacle, this branch circuit, no other devices are on it. It's just one simplex. That's all it is. Okay, that receptacle shall have a rating not less than the rating of the circuit. Okay, so in this case, it can't be less. Now, could the receptacle be a 20? Right? Well, it's not less than the rating of the circuit. So absolutely. But typically what people do is it's a 15 amp branch circuit. They say 15 amp simplex. God, I can't even say it today. All right, and where do you get that rule? Right here. That is in 210.21b1. Again, pause, go look at your code book. This one we're not going to break away and look at because basically it says exactly what you see on the screen, so there's really no reason for me to go look. But if you're in the program, what do I say do? And I'm doing it for time, but you want to pause it, go read the rules so that you know that you're crystal clear about it, and then come back. All right, next, let's go on to the next one. So that was D. So remember what I just said? What about this 20? Can I put a 20 on a 15? Absolutely. Because as long as the rating of the receptacle is equal to or greater than that of the overcurrent device, when it comes to these simplexes here, absolutely, I can put a 20 amp single on a 15 amp. Okay. Now, of course, I could put that single 20 on a 20. That should be a no-brainer. But here, the more significant to explain that on a 15 amp breaker, I can use a single 15 or a single 20 on that, and I would be perfectly acceptable to do that, right? Again, as long as the receptacle's rating is at least or greater than whatever the overcurrent protected device rating is, okay? And also remember that the rating of the overcurrent device dictates the rating of the circuit. Okay, this should go without saying, but in case you haven't heard it before, if it's a 20 amp rated overcurrent protected device and it's a 20 amp branch circuit, again, that's what dictates it. All right, now here's where we start seeing those other things right here. So what about now it's a 20 amp, just like up here where it said, well, wait a minute, this 20 could be on a 15 amp, but down here, this 15 can't be on the 20. Why? Because what did it say in 210.21? It says the receptacle has to be equal to or greater than the branch circuit rating. In this case, it was 20. So that 15 is not going to work, right? Now, you could do that with a duplex, remember? You can't do it here. That's what it says. And that is the part that I think people struggle with when they're determining what you can and can't do for the ratings of the receptacles versus the overcurrent protection. Okay, so that'd be a violation. And if we go look at F, you'll see right here, it says a 15 ampere single receptacle shall not be installed on a 20 amp individual branch circuit. Why? Because as it says in 210.21, the single receptacle has to be what? Equal to or greater than the branch circuit rating. And it is not in this case. All right, let's go on down here. Y'all doing great, and we're making great progress, and hopefully these are starting to now make more sense to people. All right, let's go on here. And all right, so here's a 20 amp rated overcurrent protected device. It happens in this case to be probably either a GFCI or an AFCI. Okay, could be dual function, does both. And you see it's a 20 and a 20 single is perfectly acceptable, right? And then down here, you see, again, like we saw before, 20 ampere rated overcurrent protective device and a 15 amp rated receptacle. Again, that's perfectly okay. We saw that earlier, but we have 2 additional callouts here, and so we want to make sure we look at these. So this is G and H. So let's see what G and H has to tell us. G says a duplex receptacle is not a single receptacle. Wow, that is so important again. So I have a lot of times students will be confused when they think of a duplex as a single receptacle. It's not, it's 2. It's 2, very important. Okay, so it is not a single receptacle as defined in Article 100. It says a single receptacle is a single contact device with no other contact devices on the same yoke or strap. Okay, just one receptacle. That's it. It's not a duplex. And I think one of the key things for people to really grasp is anywhere in the code that it says 2 or more receptacles, you have to remember that a duplex is 2. And it's going to trigger some requirement maybe that talks about 2 or more. One duplex receptacle kicks that in, right? So that's so important to hammer that home, that a duplex, again, is not a single receptacle. Although it looks like a single receptacle, it's one receptacle device, but there's 2 receptacles on that yoke. Okay, whereas, again, simplex, just 1. I hate to be redundant, but I understand that sometimes it takes that to beat people in the head to make them realize these things so that in the field they don't make these mistakes, and they certainly don't make them on an exam. Now, H says receptacles of the 20 ampere circuit can have a rating of either 15 or 20 amperes, and of course we saw that earlier, so all that was doing was reiterating what we saw up here, right? Reiterating what we saw right here. So that is nothing new. Okay, same thing we saw before. Makes sense? This can tend to get complicated for people, but if you just take a break and read it, and definitely look at table 210.21b, and most certainly B3, because that's your receptacle ratings, right? And then, of course, don't forget single. Okay, simplex ratings, and that would be in 210.21b. You definitely want to make sure you look at that as well. And we're going to go, now that we're done that part, we are going to go look at that one and kind of hammer this thing home. So remember, this is the one for the receptacles as 2 or more, right? And that's what we're talking about, B3 right here. Okay, 2 or more. And then the single is right here, B1. Single receptacle on an individual branch circuit, okay? Single receptacle. Make sure you're familiar with these. In an upcoming episode, we're also going to talk about things like cord and plug connected loads. We're also going to talk about permissible loads when you have multiple outlets, okay? And that would be like duplex here. It says 2 or more outlets or receptacles. That's a duplex. That's 2 or more. We're going to get into that because that is another place that people struggle with. And that is where we get into the 50% rule and the 80% rule, cord and plug connected versus fixed. Don't worry, we're going to cover that. And that's why you really need to make sure that you subscribe to our channel because other people just kind of give you information. I'm going to break it down for you. And I'm going to tell you that if you're wondering about trusted sources, again, I implore you folks, go to your code book. Go to the front of the code book. Go to code panel 5 and code panel 17. You're going to see my name in there. I've been doing this for a long time. I've written numerous books, and this is what I do. And so when you're investing in somebody and when you invest in us, I'm here to educate you. And that's what we're here to do. Okay, so let's kind of come back to me, and we'll end this thing up for this episode. Hopefully you learned something. You now have a better understanding of receptacles and how they work and all the things that are associated with that. In future episodes, we're going to get deep into other topics. But again, if you want a good course on the National Electrical Code, you need it, right? If you're an electrician out there and you're just pulling cable, you're pulling conductors and raceways, and you're doing what the boss tells you, you're doing what your supervisor tells you, knowledge is powerful. You separate yourself amongst everybody else. The more knowledge, and let me tell you what, with knowledge comes a lot of pride. But with that pride becomes responsibility to pass on the knowledge that you're gaining to others. So tell people about our programs. Let them know about Fast Tracks Tube to watch our videos. Get them in a good code-based program that teaches the National Electrical Code, not opinions, the National Electrical Code. That's what we're here to do. And again, we're here to try to help you understand it. So hopefully you got something out of this today. Until next time, folks, stay safe. God bless. Until next time, stay safe. All right? Take care.